joining us on our webinar series on nurturing emotional intelligence in children. I'm going to turn on my camera, and Erin and I will say hello for now. And then we're going to turn it off for the presentation. I know sometimes it's a little bit easier if you're on a phone or a tablet. And then we'll turn it back on for the Q&A. So going through. What we'll discuss tonight is we're going to say welcome. We'll have a general housekeeping for a few of the technology and whatnot issues. What is emotional intelligence? Examples of emotional intelligence in everyday life. Strategies to nurture emotional intelligence at home. Strategies to nurture emotional intelligence at school, and a Q&A session. So hello and welcome everyone. Thank you all for joining and welcome to our webinar series, where if you've joined us before, we chat about all aspects of early childhood and behavior. All three of our directors at Hatchlings London are early childhood development and behavioral consultants. And today's webinar will be hosted by myself, Kaylin Smilik, and Erin. We're lucky to have Erin as she is also on maternity leave. She's jumping in for Jess, who is taking annual leave this week. So just a few general housekeeping things that we've gone over. So we will record this webinar at the end, and we always post it to our YouTube channel. So we would love it if you followed us on YouTube, watched it again, feel free to share it. That's kind of where we put all of our resources as well on there. If you would submit your questions throughout, Erin can kind of work through that, and then we will be better able to answer as many as we can at the end. We have quite a few questions most weeks about the copies of the slides. We don't give out the copies of the slides, but you can find them all through our webinar recordings on the YouTube channel with all of our comments and everything else. And if you need any technical support, I'm hoping, fingers crossed, we have figured out all of our technical issues for this evening. Thank you again for being patient. But of course, if there's any further questions, please do let us know. All right, let's get started on emotional intelligence. So a few quote that I put in this evening for the webinar was that it is not what you do for your children, but what you have taught them to do for themselves that will make them successful human beings. I thought this was a really great quote because it encompasses kind of all of those skills that we really want to enable children to have in order to be successful in the long-term scheme of life, kind of going from children to teenagers to adulthood and kind of enabling them with these skills. And I think emotional intelligence is a really big area that often, as adults, we're really still learning to embrace and learning to understand better. So we kind of look at emotional intelligence in 4 different areas. One is understanding emotions, and we'll go into that a little bit more, but understanding the general emotions. What are emotions? What do they look like? Perceiving emotions, how you perceive them and how you think about them, and how also you perceive other people's emotions. Using the emotions on a daily scale in multiple settings across different people, with children, adults. And then a lot of managing emotions. So we call this a little bit of self-regulation and what tools we can use to manage those emotions. What is emotional intelligence? So emotional intelligence is defined as a person's ability to express and manage feelings appropriately while respecting the feelings of others. It's a set of skills that children can begin learning at any age. So really, I think this covers quite an important part, and we see this a lot. We work a lot on our parent training model, a lot in nurseries to kind of foster this and really have people understand that these skills are really vital for, successful development in children and, creating social skills, which we'll discuss later. So it's not just understanding, I guess, your own emotion per se, it's also understanding others and being able to read those cues in other people and being able to find problem solve and find solutions to the way we feel and to the emotions. And I think as adults, as teachers, I know we've had quite a lot of teachers on here. We have other practitioners. I think we have lots of parents. I think we are the people that can really foster these skills in children and teach them to understand their feelings, and it's okay to have feelings and to express their emotions in different ways. So the way that we kind of look at emotional intelligence is the 5 steps of emotional intelligence. And the first step is emotional awareness. So being aware of the emotions and the ability to recognize and understand your moods and emotions and your drives, as well as their effect on others. The second piece or step 2 that we would look at is the emotional self-regulation. So how do you regulate it, and how do you control or redirect the impulses and moods, the way we think about things before acting as well, and how we utilize and find different tools. And we have a few examples later on of how we can work on that, and also a few resources that we really work with some of our clients with and some of the children that we work with to build that self-regulation, because it's really important to have parents work on and teachers work on teaching children how to learn to self-regulate themselves, because we can only have we can't be with the children for their entire life and be in every situation where a feeling or emotion could occur. So really teaching them those skills to self-regulate. Looking at their motivation, so what drives, what is the motivation to really work on these skills, and what empathy, that's a massive part of emotional intelligence in general. So empathizing for others, feeling for others, reading nonverbal cues, verbal cues of other people, the way they're feeling, and paying attention to, our friends and what they're looking and all of the faces that they're making, and then how we can, empathize with them and be there for them. And 5, I think, sums up a lot of emotional intelligence, kind of why we have emotional intelligence, why we teach children, is because it's vital within managing relationships, building networks in later life, having in the classroom setting for, small children, it's a lot of how we make friends and, how we succeed keeping those friends is being able to empathize, but also having those social skills and kind of that toolbox of understanding our emotions and our feelings and how we can regulate them. So we laid out here a few common examples and some solutions. Of course, there are lots of them, but we wanted to give you an idea of kind of what it looks like in being empathetic and using language to better build understanding of emotional intelligence. So the first example is your child is throwing a tantrum that another child took their toy. You see, and I think when we're thinking about that, it's a very typical, toddler to child to, teenager type issue that we have. And I think we see it, in homes and in schools. And we worked on a little bit of the behavioral components and finding the functions in our past webinars. So please, if you haven't seen those already, go to our YouTube channel and check out kind of the functions of behavior. But we're looking at how we really can foster and nurture their growing as well. So we could say, you seem so angry right now. Is it because Johnny took your toy? I completely understand why you'd be angry. So you're really empathizing with the child, you're recognizing how they're feeling, and you're going to work through it with them. And you're present in the moment with them too, and teaching and telling them how they feel. Because I think often in young children, And I'm sure Ellen would agree too, in lots of the children that we have worked with, that's tough. It's really tough for them to label the emotion and understand how they're feeling. So when we're empathizing, we're thinking about helping them label it as well. Our second example is your child gets frustrated easily when they do not complete something perfect. Common issue nowadays, I think, among lots of people, even into adulthood. And just thinking in a little bit of frustration in children. So the way we can kind of nurture that in using, I guess, emotionally intelligent language could be, I can tell that you're frustrated right now, and I understand. Let's work together to figure out how we can learn from this. So a few examples for this could be sitting down and showing your child that it's okay not to be perfect. It's okay to, often I think in school age children, we often see the rubbing out or the crossing out or the, when they're doing their writing. In younger children, it could be drawings, it could be, frustration around building toys and not being able to do it, and kind of really helping them work through together and figure out how they can learn from, the actual, perfection that they're trying to do. Because a little bit of this manifests in control and not feeling like they have control of the situation. So I think recognizing the way they're feeling and telling them that you can problem solve per se together is a really great way to work on this. So a few strategies for building emotional intelligence at home. First, as I discussed before, we really like you to listen to your child. So take the time to listen to what your child has to say. Put down all the devices and spend time learning about how your child feels. And exactly, pretty much like shown in this picture, is really being face to face with your child and helping, confronting them and helping them be with you in the moment and explain how they're feeling. So, I think sometimes it's, shutting kind of everything else around you and just being present there with them. So they feel they're trusted, they have their trust, their honesty, and, they feel like they have your full attention. And next area is empathize. So validate the feelings by labeling them and empathizing. Always make sure your child is aware that you are aware. So really, as it says, is kind of making sure your child knows that how they feel and you're there for them. And being, I know you're upset right now, but we need to share the toys, or, I know you're upset right now. Let's think about how we can ask for the toy next time, and then we can share with our friends. And the third idea that we had for a strategy is problem solving. So similar to a Rubik's Cube, it's a problem solving puzzle, but I think often children need help and guidance with this and some brainstorming together. So sitting down together and thinking of practical solutions for the situation. So just, in any area that might arise, we can sit down and help them problem solve and really give them solutions. If it's, asking for a turn to a peer, if it's raising their hand in the classroom, if it's sharing toy, what language can we provide them by helping them to problem solve? Strategies for building emotional intelligence at school. Having been a teacher, I think this is an area that is quite interesting to really focus on, and probably, within a little bit of the PSHE framework in the UK, is using first strategy is using vocabulary around feelings. So creating lists with your students, using visuals about different feelings, and having your students help brainstorm. I think it's quite common. We go into quite a lot of nurseries, and it's quite common in nurseries to see on the walls kind of, a lot of the emotions, which is really fantastic. And those pictures of emotions, it could be, I've seen monsters and different emotions in monsters, and there's lots of resources, of course, on Twinkle that have a lot of vocabulary building around emotions and feelings. And we love Twinkle at Hatchlings. We use it quite often for building a lot of these lists as well. So if you need ideas, I'm sure most teachers use Twinkle a lot as well. Strategize. So have your students brainstorm on ways they may react to situations. Help them role play and talk about what emotions and feelings look like. I think a lot of role play is really fantastic. It can be used in so many different ways. It doesn't have to be them, it doesn't have to be a dramatic performance where they have to stand up in the class and do something like that for school-age children. But when we're thinking about some of our younger children, toddlers into nursery-age children, into reception, I think you can kind of think of, we work a lot on play-based interventions. And when we do a lot of our parent training, we really focus on that natural environment play. So we can role play a lot of situations with toys. If it's, building Legos and you're role playing the different people, how they're feeling, and someone fell over and hurt themselves, and the characters are talking to themselves, those types of things, or dollhouse. There's so many different ways that play can really be a really fundamental part on building these emotions and feelings and explaining what they look like. And finally, literature. Reading stories is really fantastic. You can build a lot of emotional vocabulary and problem solving through so many of the storytelling ways and books that we read. And also something to add is, if you are interested in suggestions on a few more emotional type books where they handle emotions and talk about feelings, we have a list. So please feel free to email us, and we're happy to share what our favorite picks are for books. Finally, looking at some resources, I think these are a few that we really like to use, just for we've listed here. So the Gottman Institute handles a lot of emotional understanding and building that. They handle a lot of, family type parent trainings. A lot of their research is really interesting to read, and we've taken, we use a lot of their research as well in kind of teaching our parents as well as our teachers. Generation Mindful has some really amazing tips and some really amazing activities. If you fill out our survey at the end, we've written one activity that Generation Mindful uses in their program as well. So I think would love to share that tip with you. And the zones of regulation, helping with self-regulation. So, there's lots of different programs, zones, as well as self-regulation alert program. Zones kind of puts emotions into different colors and then labels them. And we can kind of work on children being in, I'm feeling in the green zone right now. And they explain really well on their website about the whole program. There's a really fantastic book about it too. I think, they're offering a few webinar trainings as well. So definitely something to look at that we've used with our clients in homes, but also in schools, because a lot of these self-regulation programs can be really generalized to many children in a classroom setting, as well as individual children and in families. And then the self-regulation alert program is a little bit more about, it's quite nice for younger children too, talking about engines and cars and how fast your engine is running. And if your engine is running too fast, there's practical strategies that adapt to each child that would work best for them. And, I think it builds a little bit of awareness in the children and helps them detect how they're feeling. And then they think, all right, actually, if I'm feeling my engine's running too fast, maybe I need a hug, or maybe I need to do, a calming exercise, and you can tailor this per child as well. Things to remember: feelings serve a purpose. All feelings we have in life, they always have a purpose. So when children come to us, we really need to think about that and remember that, and make sure we're really, it doesn't have to be right in that moment, but make sure we're nurturing that as we, if it's about the child taking a break for a few minutes and then you come back to it, but making sure we really think about what the child is saying. And I guess when you think about it too, in a lot of what we've done in our past webinars with functions, I think behavior serves all behaviors have a function, they serve a purpose. Why are things happening? And you can kind of relate, of course, a lot of the behavioral things into emotions and feelings as well. So just remembering that we need to kind of find what that purpose, what that child is upset about, what is the function, and how can we help them. The second part is labeling emotions. So as we said, help your child or student to label the emotion. The third is to problem solve. Come up with practical solutions that they can use. We always talk a little bit about function, being functional. So making sure that these solutions they can use are functional for their age, are functional for their, ability in terms of nonverbal and verbal children. Like there's lots of things that you can still do with all children in general. Emotions are always a time for connection. So as we suggested before, taking that time to really be there for your child and connect and work, using those as really great teaching opportunities when a child is feeling different ways. And lastly, I think it's really important to never underestimate your child's ability to learn and grow. Children are always learning and they're always growing. And I think, a lot of these emotional intelligence skills set a lot of foundational groundwork for them. And, they're keen to learn, and we are their best teachers as adults, parents, teachers, practitioners working with them. And of course, as we always say, please get in touch. Support is always available. Speak to your child's teacher, your Senko, or other professionals who may be involved with the child. We are also, the Hatchlings team are available for consults to help further more in-depth and specific support. Currently, you can book a free 30-minute initial consultation through our website, or please feel free to drop us an email at contact@hatchlingslondon.co.uk. You can also find us online. We have a Facebook page, Hatchlings London, our YouTube channel, as I mentioned before, and lastly, our website has a lot of great information. Jess and Aaron run a fantastic Lego training, and they post up there about the upcoming training. So please check that out, about our webinars and all the services that we provide within parent training, nursery school training. There's a lot of different areas that we cover right now. So please have a look at our website. And at the end, after our questions, we will have a short survey that will be sent out. So if you have time, we would really appreciate you filling it out, as we use all of the data to improve our webinars and deliver the content that you want to see. So if you have any topics, please write that in that question there. We are always very keen to provide as much information as we can. And upon completion of the survey, you will receive a free resource within 24 hours related to the webinar. So as I suggested, we will be sending out 5 activities pertaining to emotional intelligence and a little bit more information based on tonight's webinar. Last but not least, we would love to now focus, on our Q&A. So we will do our best to answer as many questions as we can. We always have quite a lot of questions. And I will put this back up. There we go. Okay, so we have a question.
Okay,
Go ahead, Erin.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say maybe next week we can get the questions just coming through as the webinar is going along. That might be easier to do rather than sort of wait till the very end. You can just throw your questions at us and we'll pin them so that we can have them organised and ready to go basically right at the end.
So I think we have a question here about what is the best way to get parents on board with promoting self-regulation? I work in an earlier setting. I think, you know what, I think really trying to give parents an understanding of what it looks like in the everyday life. So if it's giving the example of getting all your parents on board, I think kind of holding a very similar thing to this about understanding what emotional intelligence is and how to promote self-regulation. So really thinking about different strategies. Obviously it's child by child basis, but as an overall understanding self-regulation, not just from the programs that we've suggested, there's a lot of areas that you can think, and teach parents to problem solve based on their child's behavior or emotions that are coming out. So I think, getting them on board is a little bit about thinking about how can your earlier setting or your nursery provide things, knowledge around emotional intelligence, knowledge around why it's important, and helping children as a whole self-regulate. Because when you're in that setting and there's so many, children to help learn to regulate, it's kind of taking it from a whole perspective, because one child learns from the other child, learns from the other. So, it's setting examples too for each of the children. And that comes from, the wider surrounding is at what happens at home for each child. So possibly, there's something, running something on emotional intelligence or emotions in general might help as well. We have one question on what book on emotional intelligence would you recommend to practitioners? Very happy to send a book list. The list that we have are very much based around kind of, a lot of the younger children that we work with and their storybooks type teaching emotions. But in terms of, if there's other ideas that you would like that we use in terms of self-regulation programs, we can kind of suggest that. Just send us an email and we're happy to answer that.
I think the good sort of important thing just overall for emotional intelligence is to, when you are listening and things, I think as parents it can be quite difficult in the moment if your child is really struggling with their own emotions, and it can sort of make you battle with your own at the same time. I think as well, when we're asking you to sort of empathise, it's important to know that we're not asking you to agree with them. You know, they could be struggling with their emotions, but you know, not in your, you know, for kind of the wrong reasons as such. But all we're asking is that you're just letting them know that you understand that they are feeling what they're feeling. You might not agree with the reason why they're feeling that way or whatnot, but I think it's important to just allow them to realize that you're in the same place with them, and that you're sort of feeling, you've felt what they've felt before. And yes, it's not about agreeing all the time, but it is about sort of just trying to connect with them on their level at that moment in time.
Thank you, Erin. Yeah, that's great. Do we have any further? Do you have any particular strategies for a teen with ADHD? Depending on, I assume this probably pertains a little bit to that self-regulation as well, those areas, in, you know, understanding how to promote those as well and work on those. A lot of those programs that we suggest are, you know, geared towards some of that, as well as typically developing children. But I think, you know, fostering and following kind of the steps of the emotional intelligence, you can work through all of this. Is it, you know, finding a way to, you know, sit down and work one-on-one with with your teenager or your student, to really build these areas and build those emotions, and then thinking about how do we problem solve together. So how do we take the scope of that child or that teenager and think what will work for them and what are practical solutions given, you know, the situation and given the understanding of it. Erin, if you have anything to add, feel free. We have one on, are there any good resources for high school students? Depending on what you mean in terms of if you wanted self-regulation or emotional intelligence type books, our typical age group is a little bit younger, but per se, I would definitely look at Gottman Institute. They have quite a great range of resources, but I would also consider some of those self-regulation programs that we suggested. Those cover quite a wide age range, and even if you can't find the particular resource that you're looking for on there, they have really great suggestions of other resources, and other studies that have been done as well.
Yeah, I think a lot of the programs that we've sort of guided you to and the resources, while they have their structure, they can be adaptable. So, you know, if you go online and you look at the zones of regulation and you think, oh, it's maybe a little bit sort of young for a high school student, and you know, you can sort of adapt it so you can make it more sort of age appropriate, as long as you're sort of like sticking with the basic structure and the basic elements, and kind of using the kind of guidance that they're giving you in terms of emotional intelligence and regulating those emotions. You can sort of adapt it to your own setting and your own students and age and range and whatnot.
Definitely. Any more? What we have one about what age would it be a worry if the child doesn't show much empathy? I'm hesitant to say it would be a worry. I think there's definitely areas that you can work on without showing empathy, but perhaps it's just the approach to how, you know, you work to model that that understanding of empathy. So is it, you know, as we suggested, looking at a little bit of a play-based situation where you react, like you act out pretty much with toys, their favorite toys, what motivates them and how it makes them feel. Is it using, you know, two parents that are high motivators for children often to really make that emotional understanding a little bit broader? So I think there's quite a lot of ways using books that we can still nurture it and bring it to, you know, to a better understanding of that empathy and how others feel and how you make others feel, and a little bit of that social thinking and social awareness of how others feel based on the way that you're acting. So it's kind of, you know, broadening their scheme. And that, you know, there's another really great thinking of another program that, you know, we have, you know, we use often too is social thinking is another program that often gets children to think a little bit outside and provide empathy and regulation as well. Right, I think we don't have any other questions this evening. We'll give one more minute because I know we started a bit late. But please feel free to ask, or if you don't ask now, please send us an email. We're very happy to answer as many questions as we can. Okay, lastly, just flipping through, sorry. We are going to thank you so much for joining us tonight. I'm very grateful for all of your patience with our technology. We are learning a new system, and we'll definitely be on top of it in the coming weeks. Next week, we're going to do a rerun of reinforcement, a practical guide. We had a few technological glitches last week, but we really feel this is an important area, and we would love you to join us. And it's a great conclusion onto a little bit of our behavioral functions webinars that we posted in the past. So please visit our YouTube page. And thank you so much, and have a great evening, everyone.
Thank you.